Welcome to you all to the launch of the Day of AI, which will be held later this year on July 27th. I'd firstly like to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the lands of the Gunditjmara people of the Gunditjmara Nation, and that I pay my respects to their people, their lands and waters. And I'd like to extend that respect to the traditional owners of the lands that you join us on today as well. How exciting, the Day of AI. It's going to be a day that will spark curiosity. It will fire up the imaginations of students and school communities around this country to the world of artificial intelligence, a world that we are already living in, but that we will want to ensure that we are equipped to navigate and have full equitable participation in. There's a lot of hype, a lot of confusion about what AI is. So today, we hope we get you closer to an understanding. But basically, the age a child touches an iPhone, they are already touching and interacting with AI. There's a drastic technology skills shortage in this country. And so now more than ever is the time to ensure that every student has the opportunity to participate in what this new world has to offer. It feels very appropriate that we have come together through the magic of technology and that one of our major service providers has gone down. But we are celebrating a day that there are positive impact that technology can have for our future. If AI sounds like something out of your reach, we strongly encourage you to sign up to participate in the day because you will see just how accessible it is. This morning, we're going to hear from two speakers who are passionate about bringing AI into schools and who know a great deal about the topic. You'll meet Professor Cynthia Breazeal and Dr. Hugh Williams, who will share with us their experience. This is a really unique opportunity to have the experts at your fingertips to ask the questions that matter to you or your education community. You can actually submit questions throughout the discussion, and at the end of the presentations, we'll present as many as we can to our experts. I encourage you to ask all manner of questions because, of course, we all love a classroom where there are questions and curiosities flying around the room. Okay, before we go any further, I'd love to introduce you to Rolly Clifton-Bly, who will share with you the TDM Foundation's vision for the Day of AI. Welcome, Rolly.
Thank you, Jacinta, and good morning, everyone. The TDM Foundation is the philanthropic arm of TDM Growth Partners, a fund manager that focuses on investing in disruptive growth businesses around the world. At the Foundation, our mission is to play a role in making Australia future ready. Given that mission, one of the areas of highest priority for us has been the development of Australia's digital and technology skills. We know, as Jacinta said, we have a massive skills shortage in this space. To develop these skills, we need to act now, and we've decided to prioritise Australia's secondary school students, our next generation. When MIT and i2 Learning, a US-based education provider, approached us at the end of last year to be part of their inaugural global Day of AI, we jumped at the opportunity. We think the teaching materials are fantastic and highly engaging, and we hope they give Australia's principals and teachers some new tools through which to engage their secondary school students. Really importantly, the materials are completely free. All you need is access to the internet. One of the parts of the day that we're really enthusiastic about on the 27th is the competition that will run throughout the day. This will give students the chance to apply their learnings across the day to a particular social issue or community issue or school issue they see, and to think about how AI can be used to solve it. For the Year 10 cohort, they'll be in the running for a week work experience at some of Australia's best technology-enabled businesses, all expenses paid. Xero, Rocked, Culture Amp, Tyro, Pet Circle, GoOne, and Guzman and Gomez are corporate supporters. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the day and for being so enthusiastic. To our project partners, CS and Schools, ATSI, Teach for Australia, Thank you for helping us bring this concept to life. We could not have done it without you. More than anything, we hope the day is energetic, exciting, and lots of fun for students and teachers alike. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jacinta.
Thank you, Rolly. Before we go to our experts, there's nothing like a little bit of animation. So here's a short video to explain the day of AI.
How did my phone recognize me?
Whoa, how did that appear on my screen? What's a deepfake?
How does a car drive itself?
Can robots think like people? When it comes to technology, kids ask all sorts of questions. And even as adults, we don't understand everything about artificial intelligence or AI. But one thing is clear, AI is here to stay. That's why we're creating an opportunity for students everywhere to learn about AI and discuss the implications of these new technologies. The day of AI is coming. It's a day of creative learning designed to show years 7 to 10 how machines think. Best of all, it's free and open to everyone. All you need is the internet and a computer with a web browser. So why is it important to learn about AI? AI is increasingly embedded in everything we do and interact with. In understanding AI, we show our kids how they can be successful in our rapidly changing world. Day of AI courses are informational rather than technical, designed to be taught by educators across all disciplines, even those with little or no technological background. And all activities are scaffolded to engage and inspire children of different backgrounds and interests. So no matter what your classroom looks like, Day of AI is a wonderful learning opportunity for you and your students. Here's how it works. Lessons and activities run in 30 to 60-minute time blocks. Free online training workshops are available to teachers, providing step-by-step guides to each lesson. Up to 4 hours of lesson plans are provided per grade. Teachers can choose to run their favorites. To get started, all you have to do is register. It's free and provides full access to our lesson plans and curriculum. Kids ask all sorts of questions, and we're committed to providing them with the answers they need. Be part of the Day of AI and give them the power to program their own future.
Basically, by the end of the day, you'll work out how to tell that actually I am a deep fake. So before though we go on, our next guest has got to be one of the coolest people I've ever had the chance to introduce. Since she was a child, she dreamt of a world where there might be robots that would actually interact in a positive way with humans, not just things. She's an associate professor of media arts and sciences at MIT, where she founded and directs the Personal Robots Group at the Media Lab. She serves on several editorial boards in the areas of autonomous robots, effective computing, entertainment technology, and multi-agent systems. She's also an overseer at the Museum of Science, Boston. Please make her welcome in the comfort of your own space, the queen of the robots, Professor Cynthia Breazeal. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be able to join you today.
Look, let's start at the very beginning with you and your love of robots. What interested you about AI and how did it become such an enormous part of your journey?
Yeah, so, for me, as well as so many people in the field of AI and robotics, the first fascination started with science fiction. In my case, it was the original Star Wars. I was 10 years old. And I remember seeing, on the big screen, this whole new universe with these amazing starships and Jedis and so forth. But I fell in love with the robots. I fell in love with R2-D2 and C-3PO. And it, forever really shaped my idea of what robots could be and what they could be for people. They were full-fledged characters. They weren't just automaton that did tasks. They had personalities, they had friendships, they helped people save the galaxy. They were really incredible. So, I could have told you at 10, I knew those robots didn't exist at the day, and I didn't think they would ever exist in my lifetime. So it's really quite remarkable. And, technology has a way of sometimes speeding up in unpredictable ways. That, as a graduate student at MIT, I built a robot called Kismet, which is recognized today as being the world's first social robot. And it was all about the ability for robots to actually interact with people in very human-centered ways. So social interaction, nonverbal cues, emotion. This was the first time people were applying these concepts of social interaction and emotion to machines, and particularly machines that were designed to interact with people. But, I understood that, if we were ever going to see this future of robots, walking amongst us like in Star Wars, they would have to be able to understand and interact and treat people, not as generic entities in the environment, which is kind of dominating how people thought about, AI that day. It's just a purely cognitive process and just task and utility. But I always was fascinated by our relationship and our ability to collaborate and interact with these robots much more as a kind of a synergistic team. So that's how I came to kind of be in this field of AI, kind of being this founder of this whole field of what's called social robotics. And, as time has gone on, we've developed autonomous robots that help kids learn as personalized learning companions. When the case of COVID, this big issue around mental health, we've started to develop robots as kind of, mental wellness coaches in the home to deliver kind of positive psychology interventions to help lift people's moods and help build emotional resilience. And, as I've been creating these systems and understanding how through social interaction and collaboration, these are technologies that can really, think about it, profoundly shape human thoughts, behaviors, learning, everything. And it just occurred to me, people do not understand in general how this technology works. They don't understand the power of this technology to engage. I'm trying to design technologies that help people, but you get to think about that's not always necessarily the case. And so I started getting very interested in what I'm calling AI literacy, which is to say it's not enough that undergraduates and graduate students, can learn about AI. Everyone is touching AI, is what you said, Jacinta. It is in everything. Kids are interacting with every day, and we need to understand it.
AI, as you sort of mentioned, it used to be stuff of science fiction movies where robots would inevitably kill us. But that is not our future. Just how embedded is it now in the way we live?
It is embedded in ways that, again, I think many people don't understand. So, when you think about, the industry side of it. So before I came online, I looked up, some articles on Forbes just to get some latest statistics. It says 90% of leading businesses have ongoing investments in AI. And, the use of AI in many sectors has grown by over 270% over the last 4 years. And these skills in AI and machine learning the demand for these skills is growing and growing and growing. And yet the reality is we are not educating and training people fast enough to even take advantage of these opportunities. So it is a highly influential technology. And if you thought computers was a big deal or the internet is a big deal, those have laid the foundation for AI and cloud, with cloud computing to become a very big deal. So it's hard to imagine an industry or a sector that is not leveraging these tools and techniques of AI, whether it's medicine or autonomous cars and transportation and sports analytics and entertainment. The list just goes on and on and on. So it's really a question of how do we design these technologies not to replace us. I know that's been kind of like the concern and the fear. Actually, there's the expectation that many more jobs are going to be created because of AI that are going to be displaced or changed. The question is, how do you design these technologies and how do we educate people so AI with people together can be more productive, more creative, solve more challenging problems in important ways, to create a better world together. That's the opportunity. But we have seen missteps already along the way. And of course, the media has been, drawing our attention to those. So one example, for instance, is AI has been increasingly used in hiring. And people have been using this technology called deep learning to train deep learning nets to predict, who might be good to hire, let's say, for a technical job at a high-tech company. And so they were using AI to be able to put up job advertisements. And so they trained the model on the kind of people they hired in the past, of course. And what happened is that men, and white and Asian men, were disproportionately getting many more of these advertisements than women or people of color. Well, why is that? I mean, the designers didn't intend for that to happen, but that is kind of the palette of who works at these companies now. So it was serving to exacerbate and perpetuate inequity and biases that we never intended. And we've seen that kind of rinse and repeat a couple of times. So now the responsible design of these technologies and really thinking through the social implications of this technology is really important in how it affects not just industries, but government and policy and education. These are the really important questions. And this is what we're hoping to give people a little taste of with the Day of AI.
Well, that's, I guess, the next question. I mean, you've answered it in so many ways, our skilled shortage, the fact that this is going to be such an important area for employment. But why do you think the Day of AI is so important, and why should secondary schools get behind it?
I think, you know, the reality is, as you said in your introductory remarks, I mean, children today, you know, they used to call them digital natives. I would argue they're now AI natives. Like, they are growing up in a world where they have always been able to interact with intelligent technologies and machines. A lot of it is embedded in the apps on their mobile phones and social media. You know, we're seeing, you know, devices like Alexa and talking speakers. You know, it is, if, you know, it is enveloping us through our digital world and our digital lives. And so it's important for, I think, everyone. So we call this AI literacy, and it's really how AI is changing digital literacy and digital citizenship, to say we need to be much more conscientious users of these technologies, aware of what AI really is, what it can really do, not kind of this fanciful kind of, you know, God knows what it really is kind of swirl that we're surrounded with. I mean, like, what is it really? What can it really do? What are reasonable expectations as we grow up? How can we be informed to participate in the political and democratic process around how these technologies should be used in technology? And really importantly, you know, if you look at the workforce of AI, it is not diverse. It is not nearly as inclusive as it needs to be. So trying to help cultivate and foster a far more diverse and inclusive set of ethical, responsible AI designers and developers who are representative of the communities who they're designing these technologies for, I think is also really critical. So these are kind of the big goals of the Day of AI, and it's really that first introduction. You know, it's a light, first, highly engaging, fun, project-based, you know, thought-provoking way to just get people thinking about this and to open that door, so that if more students and teachers want to walk through it like that, they can start that journey.
So wonderful. And it's so exciting to get your passion, your expertise, and your enthusiasm from right across the other side of the world. Remember, if you have questions for Professor Cynthia Breazeal, you can pop them into your chat area, and we'll make sure that we've made some time at the end of this presentation to pass them on. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next speaker is one of the most passionate advocates for bringing tech to schools. I mentioned Cynthia was one of the coolest. I'll have to say that Dr. Hugh Williams is also one of the coolest, just in case I get in trouble. He's the co-founder of CS in Schools. It's an organization that is creating sustainable change in digital technology education in Australia. Prior returning to Australia in 2017, Hugh and his family spent 13 years living in Seattle and then Silicon Valley. And in this period, he held senior roles at Microsoft, eBay, and Google. Hugh and Selena Williams launched CS in Schools to help address the digital skills shortage in Australia. The program is being progressively rolled out in secondary schools and is introducing a fresh approach to teaching digitech skills to students in Year 7 and Year 8. Hugh is also a professor at the Melbourne Business School, an adjunct professor at RMIT University, and a company advisor and investor. He was formerly a vice president at Google and has held senior roles, as I mentioned before, at eBay and Microsoft. He's also a fellow of the Australian Academy of Technology and Engineering and has a PhD from RMIT University. How have you done all of these things? I bet you've been assisted by artificial intelligence. Hugh, welcome.
Thanks, Jacinta. Yeah, artificial intelligence has definitely helped me, as has age. So I've had plenty of time to get a few things done. I thought to open today, I'd just tell you an AI story from early in my career. So as Jacinta mentioned a moment ago, I worked at Microsoft. It was my first job in the United States, and part of that job was creating an image search engine. So I was challenged by Microsoft to build an image search engine to compete with Google's image search engine. That's a very, very hard problem if you think about it, right? So imagine you have 1 billion images to choose from, and you have to handle tens, if not hundreds of thousands of users who want to ask questions. And those users are asking questions as 1 or 2 word textual queries. So we're all jumping into our search engine and we're typing into a box 1 or 2 words of the things that we want, and we want images back. And to make it even harder, we want those images really, really fast. So we've probably got the patience of about 1/5 of a second. So we're going to wait 1/5 of a second to get great images for whatever it is that we type. And that's a pretty hard problem. So how might you go about solving it? Well, we could grab a whiteboard together and we could start brainstorming. And one of the things I think we'd probably think about is, if somebody types dog or cat or beautiful beach or Taylor Swift or Britney Spears, one of the things we might think about is, let's match those words that they've typed to the web pages that are out there on the internet. And we might do that by matching those words to the titles of the web pages. So imagine there's a web page out there that says beautiful sunset at the very top, and it's got some pictures of beautiful sunsets. You might think that because the title matches the query, that's a pretty good answer. As we're brainstorming away, we might think of other things that we could do with text. So we might think, for example, that those words should match the caption of the image, the piece of text that's under the image. We might think, hey, that text should ideally match the file name. So if there's a beautiful sunset.jpg, perhaps that's likely to be a pretty good answer to the query beautiful sunset. So we could brainstorm for a while about all these different things that we could do with text when a user types in a query and there's text out there that we could match. We come up with lots of interesting things. We might then move to thinking about other users. And so we might say, hey, I've got this idea. If a user previously has typed beautiful sunset and clicked on an image, perhaps that's a good vote for that image. Maybe that says that that's a good answer for future customers. And imagine there's hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of users who've typed that query and clicked on images. We've got these sort of votes, if you like, from the crowd about what are great answers. We also might think about the image itself. So we might be able to process the image and find out what colors are in the image, whether there's people in the image, whether it's well lit, is it a high quality image? We might be able to do all sorts of things like that. And then we might be able to consider you, the user. So we might be able to think about queries that you've typed before, answers you were happy with, something about your demographics. And we might be able to use that to come up with great answers. Now, the problem here, of course, is you can't, as a human, sit down and design some function that says, here's how much of each of those things should be considered when a user types in a query. Because we have no idea how to combine all of that information together in a smart way to give great answers to the queries that the users type. And so this is where artificial intelligence comes in. And so imagine that you have a system that you can teach and train, and the system can actually learn a function, a mysterious function that can be used in production to help answer the queries of users. And this function might not even be something that we can understand as humans, but we can certainly inspect it, and we can certainly understand how it performs, but we couldn't create it ourselves, and we might not even be able to exactly understand how it works. And so that's a very good example, I think, of the use of artificial intelligence, and one that was really important in my first job over in the United States. I then went on, after working on image search, to work on video search, news search, web search, and all of these make very, very heavy use of artificial intelligence. As Jacinta mentioned at the start, I then moved over to eBay and spent a good amount of time at eBay helping do a better job of connecting buyers to sellers so that they can find the things that they want on the internet and transact. And that, again, is a very rich space for this kind of brainstorming and thinking, and then the application of artificial intelligence to solve problems. So certainly eBay's search engine makes a lot of use of artificial intelligence, as does things around listing items on eBay, recommending items to buyers, and many other aspects of the eBay technology system. My last job in the US was working at Google. Finally ended up at the great search giant that I'm sure many of you know and love, and looked after the Google Maps product. And again, there's a really great example of how artificial intelligence can be used in a really practical way to help you navigate the world and understand the places that you might want to go, even if you haven't been to those places before. So lots of application there of artificial intelligence as well. So I was lucky enough to be involved on the tech side of things and sort of helping use artificial intelligence to build technology. But as Cynthia said earlier on, artificial intelligence is now quite pervasive in all sorts of things that we do. And so it's not just the domain of a tech company, it's also the domain of almost every business that's out there trying to do the right thing for its customers. You all bank with a bank, and banks make a lot of use of artificial intelligence. So we've all, I think, woken up in the morning and seen an alert on our phone that says our credit card's been suspended because of suspicious activity. And you might wonder, how did the bank decide that? That's a fantastic application of artificial intelligence. So the bank's considering all of your purchase behaviors, the kinds of things that people like you do, and it's looking for situations using artificial intelligence where your behavior is unlikely, and then it's flagging those situations and sometimes suspending your card to protect you, the consumer, and also, of course, to protect the bank and the credit card company from losses that aren't fair on them. Large companies that do manufacturing make heavy use of artificial intelligence. So whether you're making jet engines, whether you're making cars, whether you're building bridges, artificial intelligence is often used in these as well. So it's something that's becoming not just the domain of tech people, but I think the domain of everyone. And so it's one of those things that I think students today should know a lot about, because I think whatever their passion is, whether it's technology like Cynthia and I, or whether your passion lies somewhere else, it is absolutely something that's going to impact you in absolutely everything that you do. And so I think it's important for students today to have in their toolkit an understanding of AI so that they can take those skills and use those skills in whatever they choose to do in their life. So that's why we at CS in Schools are incredibly excited about the Day of AI. We're thrilled to be partnering with I2 Learning, MIT. We're thrilled that the TDM Foundation has done all this work to bring the Day of AI to Australia, and thrilled to be partnering with Teach for Australia and all the organisations that are going to back the students who win the prizes. So we're thrilled at CS in Schools to have Day of AI Australia coming to schools later this year in July. I thought I'd tell you a little bit about CS in Schools before I wrap up as well. You might wonder what that is. CS in Schools is a free and open program for secondary schools across Australia. We don't charge anybody anything. We're backed by philanthropic donation, and our largest donor, and we're very thankful to them, is the TDM Foundation. We make available to principals and teachers a long, deep, rich program that helps them bring deep technology education to their schools so their students can learn all about digital technology as part of their everyday school learning. This year, we're partnering with 64 schools across Australia. We're in every state and territory. Almost 18,000 students will get the opportunity to learn digital technology in a deep way because of the work that we're doing together with the secondary schools across Australia. We want to have 128 schools in the program next year. So we're doubling the size of the program for next year. And so we would love more schools to embrace what we're doing. And we will work very, very hard for those schools to make sure that they succeed in giving their students a digital technology education. But I'm really excited about Day of AI Australia. I think we all are at CS in Schools. I think it's a fantastic way for students across Australia to learn something more about artificial intelligence and to get a really deep experience as to what that technology is and be able to understand that as part of their school day and then take those skills forward in the things that they do. So absolutely thrilled to be part of the program. And I'll throw back to you, Jacinta, to guide us through the rest of the afternoon.
Just muted myself. This is technology in action. Just trying to work Zoom. Watch me go. It's so incredible to be around both you and Cynthia, Hugh, with your passion and your dedication to this rolling out in such a meaningful and significant way. We mentioned at the top, we're open for questions. This is your opportunity to ask the experts what they think about how we're moving into this new world. Day of AI will also be a day where that is going to be an incredible opportunity. But Cynthia, if I could start with you, questions from the audience. What kind of jobs might be created that don't require a higher education degree? What kind of upskilling would be displaced, would displaced workers have to go through? And is that realistic for most people?
Yeah, so I think, the broad, I guess, trajectory that we see is, AI is not like a plug compatible person. So, an AI or robot will never replace like a human job. There are maybe certain tasks that the AI can help us. So jobs may change, they may transform. Some will be, replaced altogether, like they'll have to evolve, but it's much more of the case that jobs will be modified based on leveraging AI technologies, as well as new jobs could be created. So I mean, maybe one classic job to think about, we think about like Amazon, that is a company that uses AI in so many different levels of their organization. They have just completely reinvented warehouse logistics. So if you've ever seen a video of the inside of an Amazon warehouse, it's robots and humans working together to find, to quickly be able to locate, find, a goods that someone has ordered, to get it in the box and ship it off as quickly as possible. So the sort of robot human warehouse, like that's a new job that you don't need to have a college degree to be able to do, but it's created many jobs for this new kind of again, human robotic warehouse sort of system. I think, I often tell this story. So there's like, there's a question of the creators, the designers of new kinds of technologies, and those are people are going to be using them. I even think, when we talk about who the future solution creators of AI will be, when there was a time when I was a graduate student, right, when you had to have a computer science degree to design a website. It was this esoteric language. You had to know how to do line coding. I mean, you had to be a computer science student to make a website. Now think about all the people who can create value through website design. And what's happened is the tools and the interfaces have gotten to be intuitive enough that you just takes human creativity, context understanding to be able to create a website. I see the same thing is going to happen with artificial intelligence. So even when you start to look at, some of our tools, like in the computer science track for high school, we're taking these very intuitive coding languages, these block-based coding languages, but we're bringing state-of-the-art AI capabilities into them, which basically means students can actually build pretty sophisticated, in this case, Android apps using AI. And I think that is going to keep happening more and more. So many more people will be able to create solutions with AI because they're bringing their creativity and human ingenuity and understanding of the domain to the problem versus, deep computer science skills. So I think that is absolutely a trend that's going to happen as well. But, I think the punchline is human values, human creativity, human judgment. That will always be, I think, the domain of people and should be, and it's about how AI can complement and augment and extend those abilities. That's really what is going to be important.
Fantastic. That's hopeful. Indeed. Hugh, a question for you. Although programs like Day of AI are so important, do you think the curriculum needs to change to include and mandate Digitech education for students across Australia to ensure equal opportunity and access?
That is a great question. So Jacinta, you may or may not know this, but there is in fact an Australian digital technologies curriculum. So the federal government through their education folks have put together an Australian digital technologies curriculum. You can look it up online. And it's pretty good. I mean, look, as I think all computer scientists have opinions about what they'd like to see and what they'd like to see more of and less of and things, but I like what they've done. I think it's a great curriculum. Most of the states and territories have actually adopted that curriculum. So here in Victoria, for example, where I live, the Victorian State Education Department's kind of copied and pasted that curriculum and said, this is a great curriculum for Victorian students. And that's pretty common across Australia with a couple of exceptions. And then the Education Department said to all of the public schools and all of the Catholic schools, please teach this curriculum. And so it is in fact mandatory all the way from kindergarten to year 10 in the state of Victoria, and again, true in most states, that students get a digital technology education as part of their school day. But the question is a good question, and the reason it's such a good question is because that's not really happening. So even though it's been mandated, it's not really happening in most schools across Australia. And you ask, why not? Well, I think we'll start with the curriculum is hard to understand. So if you are a principal or an education leader in an Australian school, this is not an approachable curriculum to understand. So you open it up and you read it and you say, I don't really even understand what this is that I'm supposed to be asking my teachers to teach the students. So it's difficult to unpack the curriculum and understand what it is. And then, of course, there is a shortage of teachers who have digital technology skills and can actually deliver this curriculum to their students. Computer scientists like me, by and large, don't choose to become teachers. We go off and have careers in the tech industry, by and large. And so it's very challenging, unfortunately, for schools to embrace this technology and do a great job of delivering it to their students. So that's where something like CS in Schools comes in. We help solve that problem. So we partner with school principals and technology and school leadership to help them understand the curriculum. We help them transform their schools. And most importantly, we help professionally develop their teachers so the teachers can do a great job and be confident in delivering digital technology education to their students. So we're trying to solve that problem and work with in-service teachers so that in-service teachers can do that themselves. But the curriculum is already there. And I guess, importantly, in the context of the Day of AI Australia, it does have a framework around these kinds of topics. And so it would be totally appropriate for an Australian school to run the Day of AI Australia and claim that tick in the box and say that we're doing something in digital technology education just like we're supposed to, because the materials that we're putting together for Day of AI Australia very much fit into the Australian curriculum today.
Yes, incredible. Day of AI as a gateway through to that larger conversation that school communities need to be having. Cynthia, a really tricky one for you with not much time to answer it, but I know it's something that you deal with consistently in your work. This one comes from Greg. The ethics of AI is a major concern. How do we address this in technical training?
Yeah, so I think there are really a number, I think, innovative ways we approach the Day of AI curriculum. One is that, the examples we use are meeting students where they are and the kinds of things they love and actually have a lot of knowledge about, like YouTube and social media. So we already meet them where they're super engaged and have a lot of context. The second is that, we approach it, less as a kind of technical course and more as a digital literacy course, right? So it's relevant to everyone. Any teacher with any background can offer the Day of AI curriculum. So it's about digital citizenship and how AI is transforming. That's really the point. And then the third one is, we believe profoundly that the best way to teach technical fields like AI is to put the student in the position of the designer seat, because that also encourages them to think about who are my stakeholders, who is going to stand to gain or potentially not gain from what I'm designing, and how do I think through that? So that gets to the responsible ethical design questions. And every module that we offer from grades 3 through 5 up through high school, embedded within that is a deep discussion around the ethical implications of these technologies, both to help and create good, but also unintended consequences or the risk of exacerbating inequality. So we engage students actively in those conversations. And, in the United States, what we found, that creates deep engagement with the material. Students really understand this stuff matters. It is important, not just in the future, but like the right now. And that's part of also why I think this curriculum is so engaging for students.
Incredible to have those ethical dimensions inserted into curriculum regardless, but it really does provide the impetus. Hugh, we've got a huge amount of time, but we'd love to know a question here. And it comes from a parent, in fact. How do I get my child to be able to participate in the Day of AI?
This is a common question we get at CS in Schools too, Jacinta. And I would say the number one thing you can do is go and lobby your school to get involved. So I think we all know the school leadership, we know the principals, the deputy principals. And so I think a great thing to do is go and make them aware of Day of AI Australia and tell them about this fantastic opportunity to get every student at the school involved, not just their student. Tell them to go to dayofaiaustralia.com, register their school and get involved, and we'll make sure they have a fantastic fun day.
Excellent. That is very, very compelling. We probably have even maybe one more moment because you answered that so succinctly, Hugh. And again, I guess it just comes down to that digital literacy for teachers. Quite a few questions have come through around that. Again, quickly, how do we ensure that our professional body of teachers is able to keep up and not feel overwhelmed with this whole new world?
I think it's super challenging to be a teacher today. Let's be honest. I mean, the world is changing very, very fast. Teachers are under a ton of pressure. I think teachers are underpaid, undervalued, and I think it's an amazing profession. And I would love to see, as I know Teach for Australia would love to see, more great people going into teaching and embracing it as a profession. It's such an amazing career for people to have. And such a great opportunity to help the next generation be amazing. So that's the first thing I'd say is we need to get more people excited about teaching and involved in teaching. How do we help the teachers that are in service today? Well, I think professional development is incredibly important. In most states and territories, it's mandated that the teachers do professional development. And I'd say professional development is a fantastic opportunity for teachers to continue to develop their skills and evolve their skills. And I think technology is a very sought after area, and certainly one where I'd encourage in-service teachers to develop their skills, because there's enormous job opportunities open and even more will be open. We at Citizen Schools also bring industry into the classroom. And so we work very hard to connect our industry partners to teachers and use those industry partners to mentor teachers and help teachers build up the confidence and the deep skills in digital technology so that they can be successful. And that often is seen as professional development by the teachers and their schools. But I think ongoing professional development, like in many fields, is really the only way to stay on top of technology. And I think that's an incredibly important part of being a great in-service teacher.
It is possible. It is exciting. It has been wonderful to be guided by both of you in such an interesting way. We need another 1,400 hours to get through all the questions, but all the excitement around this as well. It feels like a new frontier. It's not, but we are entering it, I suppose, in our education systems and in ways that we ensure that our students are equipped for this future. Thank you so much for joining us in another time zone, Professor Cynthia Breazeal. It's been wonderful to join you and your robotic world. Give you a clap. Everyone's clapping around Australia for you. And Dr. Hugh Williams, thank you very much as well for your passion and excitement and the work that you're doing in schools already. The Day of AI will be a wonderful opportunity to further that. Thank you.
Great.
And to the wonderful Rolly Clifton Bly as well for joining us earlier, giving us a rev up and a bit of excitement about the Day of AI. That's my job. I can hear the school bell imminently ringing. So what you need to do, it's so simple. We mentioned the word free. I'll say free again. All you have to do is go on to dayofaiaustralia.com. dayofaiaustralia.com. As we heard before, lobby your schools if you are there as an individual parent, but school communities, it's so supportive. You can get involved and definitely open up that doorway for your students and your school community. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've done it. Even though we had service provision issues, we have made it through. Thank you so much for joining us. And I look forward to enjoying the Day of AI with you later this year.